Hi everyone, it's Lindy from Pink Whisper Designs. Today I thought I'd show you a really fun design that you can create using your double-sided pattern papers. And Art Impressions has so many of these available right now, and it makes it so easy to put together a really fun gatefold card like we're going to create today. So I'm going to grab a really cute image from the Valentine bear set. This is from Art Impressions. It's that little bear holding the string of hearts, but you can see you get lots of other cute little images in this set. I'm inking this up using the Versafine Onyx black ink, and I'm stamping onto some Strathmore Bristol Smooth 100-pound cardstock. Let's go ahead and do some coloring. I've got light pink for the cheeks, beige and mid-brown for the body of the little bear. To add a little bit of pink to the cheeks on my little critters. It just adds to the cute factor. We'll add some highlights to those cheeks a little bit later on with a white gel pen. I'm adding the beige, and then I'm going to add that mid-brown at the same time. You could certainly do these one at a time if you prefer. And I'm using the Zig blender pen to do my blending. And what I thought I would focus on today is some of these really pretty double-sided pattern paper pads that we have. Art Impressions has quite a few new ones, and they're so easy to coordinate everything. So I thought I'd show you how to make this gatefold card using just one paper pad and mixing and matching all the patterns to create this fun card. So let me go ahead and finish coloring in this little bear. And I do want to remind you that all the products I'm using today are listed and linked down below and also on my blog. I'm going to just use that beige on the tummy, and I'll just add a couple layers of that. I don't want the tummy to be too dark. I want it to be a little bit lighter than the rest of the bear. Then I'll go back to that beige and mid-brown to finish up his little legs. Kind of keeping the sides of the legs the lightest. And again, we'll go back to that white gel pen later to add a few highlights. So if you're blending and shading isn't perfect, don't worry about it. We can fix that with a little bit of highlighting with our white gel pen, and I'll show you that towards the end. And then let's do the two paws. And again, I'll keep it lightest right at the top. So I add a little shadowing down towards the bottom of the paw and then just blend it up towards the top. So let's blend out those cheeks a little bit more. And then for the shirt, we're going to use pale yellow and yellow. And this will blend nicely with some of the pattern papers we're choosing for today's project. So I'll start with the pale yellow, and then I'll add a little bit of the yellow for some shading. There isn't a lot of coloring on this little shirt. You could certainly come in afterwards and add some polka dots and stripes, so you can have some fun with that. And then I'm going to do all of the hearts the exact same way. I'm going to use the pink haze and the light pink and just blend those out. And I'll add that darker pink right around the edges and keep the centers of these hearts the lightest. And I'll do all of those the exact same way. So now that those are colored in, here's where I'm going to use that white gel pen, and I'm going to add some to the whites of his eyes, and I'll add a little dot on the nose and then 3 little dots on each of the cheeks, and then we'll go ahead and highlight the rest of this little bear. I'm going to highlight each of those little hearts as well. Now to cut this out, it does not come with the coordinating dies, so I'm going to just use my detail scissors and I'll cut around this, leaving a little white border all the way around. So that is going to fit into this frame that I've chosen, and this is from the Portfolio Template Die Set. And you get tons of dies in this set. You can see them all there. You get little pocket dies, scallop dies, all kinds of fun things. So I'm going to grab this little scallop frame, and I'm going back to that Strathmore Bristol Smooth cardstock, and I'll run this through the Spellbinders Scout machine. And I'm placing it on a little bit of an angle. It just makes it a lot easier to run that through your machine. So you get the scallop frame, and then you get the insert as well. So I die cut 3 of these, and I'm going to glue the 3 frames together. So I've got my Nuvo Deluxe Adhesive. I'm going to place plenty of that on there, and then we'll stack these up. And you do want to spend a little time just lining those up really well. And that will give us a nice thick frame for the front of our gatefold card. So once I had these glued together, I want to set those little inserts aside for now. And then I'm taking the Easter Bunny paper pack, and I wanted to show you how beautiful these are. Look at these gorgeous colors. Now these are double-sided papers. I'm going to select a few of these papers that will coordinate nicely with our project. So I've got the yellow polka dot, which is going to coordinate nicely with the little shirt on our bear. I've got this pink polka dot, and I'm just trying to decide what I want inside that frame for right now. And then I've got that floral one. I'm going to save that for the inside of the card. But at this point, I wasn't exactly sure which ones I was going to be choosing, so I thought I would show you some of the options I was looking at, so you could certainly select whatever you like best. I decided to go with this little plaid, so I'm going to run this through the die cutting machine again. Now this will give us the scallop frame and the insert. We'll be using that scallop frame a little bit later, so I set that aside. You do want to keep that. So going back to this same portfolio die set, I'm going to grab this long scallop border. Now this is to create a page in your portfolio. But we're going to be doing something a little bit different with this. We're going to use these to create the flaps for the front of the card. So I'm just trying to, again, select my papers, and I thought, again, I would show you some of the options that I had, because you could certainly select just anything that you like best. So I decided to go with the yellow with the white dots for the front flaps on the card. So I'm going to tape this down with some Post-it tape, and I'll run that through the die cutting machine, and I did die cut 2 of these. So you can see the inside of the card will be the white with the yellow dots. Now this creates 2 score lines, again for your portfolio, but we're just going to fold on that second score line. And I'm going to just press that out. So we don't need to worry about that other score line. So we're basically pressing down the score line closest to that scalloped edge. So let's go ahead and press that out with the bone folder, and now we have the 2 flaps for the front of the card. So to create the card, I'm going to take a piece of Strathmore Bristol Smooth cardstock, which measures 4 1/8 by 5 1/2 inches. So I've cut it a little bit smaller than your standard A2 size panel because I want the 2 flaps on the front of the card to overlap. Now here we could attach this tab to the back of this panel, but I'm going to attach it to the inside of the card. We're going to hide that. If you put it on the back, it would certainly be fine, but those little tabs will show. So I'm going to show you an easy way to hide that. So let's go ahead and take some 1/4 inch double-sided tape. I'll put a couple pieces on here. I want it to be nice and strong since this is going to be how we open and close the card. I'm just trimming off any excess. And then with my Cricut weeding tool, I'm going to remove the backing from that tape. If you press that backing down with the flat edge of the tool, then you use that pokey end just to pull that off. It comes off really easily. So let's go ahead and line this up right along the edge of the card. I did find it easier to turn this around and kind of lay them both flat on the table and line it up that way. That way I could be sure it's nice and straight. So now you can see that little flap is on the inside of the panel. Let's go ahead and do the same thing for this second one. Again, just trimming away that excess tape. We'll remove the backing and attach this the same way. So again, I'm just going to use the table to line that up and then glue that down. So you can see that we have that pretty pattern paper on the inside of the card as well now. So let's take this floral paper, and I'm going to cut this down to 4 1/8 by 5 1/2, just like we did for that white panel. I'm going to start with this size. Now, since it is going to fit inside the card, you may have to trim off just a sliver, just to make sure that this lays nice and flat when it's closed. So I'm going to grab my paper trimmer, and I'm just going to trim off just a little tiny bit of this so it fits in there a little bit better. And that's where this paper trimmer is really great to have. It trims these little tiny slivers of paper. So now we can go ahead and attach this to the inside, and you can see both sides of this paper would be perfect. So either side would be really nice. I'm going to use that lighter one. So let's place some glue on the back of this and then center it in that panel. And I'll just make sure that it opens and closes nicely before I glue it down permanently. So for this frame that we created earlier, I want to place a piece of white cardstock in here so that we can put some pattern paper on this. So I just cut a piece a little bit bigger than that insert. So I used the insert just to determine about how much bigger I would need to cut that. And this will fit right behind this frame. So again, I'm going to apply plenty of glue on the back of this and glue this down. Now we can add some pattern paper to the front of the frame. And earlier we cut out that plaid paper for the insert on the front of the frame, and then we're going to use the leftover scallop frame for the back of this piece. So I'm going to go ahead and glue that in place, and that'll finish off the back of this because that will show when we open and close our card. So we want it to look pretty on the inside as well. Let's go ahead and glue this down. Now we can flip this over and take that second piece of plaid paper and put it on the front of our frame. And that will fit in there nicely, and we'll just press that in place using the bone folder just to make sure it's in there nice and flat. I'll just use the edges of that bone folder just to press that into the corners. So now our little bear will sit right on the front of the frame, and then for that back section we're going to add some more pattern paper. So now I've got the pink with white dots, and I'm going to go ahead and die cut another frame. Now the reason I didn't die cut all of these frames right out of the gate is because I wasn't exactly sure which papers I wanted where, so I just kind of did this as I went along, but you could certainly cut all of these frames all at one time if you prefer. So now I've got that pink with the white polka dots, and I'm going to place that on the back side of the frame. Now I do want to stamp a sentiment first. I'm going to the Panda Set, and I'm going to grab Bear Hugs for this, and then a little bit later we'll be using that other sentiment. So I want this to be on the left side because that's the side that's going to show when we open and close this card. So I measured about halfway across this panel, and then I centered Bear Hugs on that left hand side, and I'm centering it kind of top to bottom as well. So let's go ahead and stamp that. And now we can go ahead and insert this into the back part of our frame. So again, that right hand side of the inside will be hidden, so that's why the sentiment is off to the left. Now we have that extra frame left over again that we got from cutting the pink with white polka dots. So I'm going to use this and one of those white inserts from the first 3 white frames that we die cut, and I'm going to stamp a sentiment on this, and this will go on the inside of the card. So let's go back to that same Panda Set, and we're going to stamp the sentiment, and it says, "I like you very much." And I'm just centering it on that panel. I like to stamp lightly. Just if you need to stamp it a couple of times you can, but I like to just stamp that very lightly at first. So now let's get this frame centered on the front of the card. And you can see that when this card is closed, you get that really pretty diamond pattern on those scallops, and that's why I made this card a little bit smaller, so you would get that pretty pattern. But certainly you could not do that and make this a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 card, as I mentioned earlier. So I measured about halfway across this frame. I was just counting off the little scallops to see where the halfway point was, and then I'm going to glue just one side of this down to one of the flaps on the front of the card. So I'm placing glue on this right hand side, And then I'm going to center it back on the card and glue this in place. And you do want to make sure you don't have glue past that center point, because then your card will get glued shut. So I'm just checking that. And now you'll see when we open the card, we can see the sentiment and only half of that frame. But it's nice to finish that off. I think the whole thing looks finished when you put that decorative paper on that frame. Now I want to line up another frame for the inside of the card with that sentiment that we just stamped. So what I'm going to do is flip this frame over. And this is the leftover pink with the white dots. I'm doing the back side. I'm putting glue on the back side, and I'm going to line it up perfectly with that frame on the front of the card. And then what I'm going to do to make sure this is lined up exactly, I'm going to just close that card right on top of that. And that will pick up that frame and place it on the inside of the card, and it'll be lined up exactly with the frame on the front. So that's a really quick and easy little trick for lining that up. And then we'll place our sentiment inside. And now you can see that we have all of those pretty pattern papers. So let's go ahead and add our little bear. I'm using some foam squares from scrapbook.com. I'm going to pop this up on the front of the card. I've got my Wink of Stella clear glitter pen, and I'm going to add some sparkle to each of these little hearts. Then I'm going to add a few sparkly gems from Pinkfresh Studio. These are the clear with gold dust, so this will look nice with this pretty yellow paper we have. I'm going to add a few, scatter a few around the front of the card. And then I thought it just needed a little something more, so I'm going to add a few little bees. And these are from the Honey Bee set, again from Art Impressions, and I'm going to just place 3 of these on an acrylic block. I'll go ahead and stamp these quickly and color them in. Once those were colored in, I did that off camera. I grabbed the coordinating dies. We'll tape those down with some Post-it tape and run those through the die cutting machine. And then let's go ahead and attach these to the card. So I'm going to place one on the front, on that upper right hand side of the frame. Put a little bit of glue there. And since that frame is stacked up with 3 layers, it's going to pop up nicely. You could also add some foam tape if you prefer. Then on the inside, I'm just going to glue these flat. So I'm going to place one above the Bear Hug sentiment. And again, these little bees will just tie everything together. Just adds a little bit more interest to the inside of the card. And then I'm going to place this one in the lower right hand corner, but anywhere on that little sentiment area would be fine. And then I'm adding a little bit of Wink of Stella to the wings on all of the bees. And then I'll go back to that white gel pen and just add a few highlights. And that will just finish everything off. So let's take a closer look at the finished card. And again, look through your stash of your pattern papers, and especially the double-sided one, because it makes it really easy to create a card like this. Because when we open that up, we get the white with the yellow polka dots on the inside, and all of the colors just coordinate so perfectly. So I really hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, please hit the like button and subscribe. And don't forget to hit that notification bell so that you don't miss a single video. Thanks so much for joining me today. I really do appreciate it. And I hope you all have a great day. Take care. Bye-bye.